north direction.
Yeah. I've never even been to Cork.
What?
I've never even been to Cork.
Oh.
I love this ferry. Yeah. So I used to always bring you and we used to come across every time we came over. You'd be so excited. Even when you were really, I remember when you were really little, just running around up here, being really worried that you're going to go overboard. My dad did his rounds when he was a rep for Bass, and he used to do his rounds around this area, and he probably would have come across on the ferry. Dad would take a couple of us and we'd go in the car with him and go and sit outside all the pubs that he was going around.
Sure it is.
Lovely though, beautiful. And cormorants just flying, is it a cormorant? A black kind of quite big bird? Yeah. I want it open. I've broken it. Do you not even like Fiddly D music?
No.
Like an Irish pub.
Do you?
Fire on Fiddly D music. I couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier.
Fire on. And on and on and on with exactly the same thing.
Well, you see, I could just imagine myself living in that over there. Look, could probably see across.
He was chased out by the loyalists. They told him to get out or he was dead. No, he wasn't in the IRA. Well, he sort of sympathiser type thing, but he wouldn't have been active. I couldn't see you for the sun up there.
Oh, you're grand. That's some plenty like on that.
Yeah. I used to, this was my area, my travelling area when I was on the road. Portaferry
Oh, really?
and Strangford was part of my area, Newcastle. I left home when I was 26 maybe. No, it was more than that. It was 20, more or less. It was about 28 really when I got married. That's when I moved out. Seamus had moved to America. My sister, Bernadette, she had moved to America. And Patsy, I think he had got married fairly early. He was married before me, my brother. So there was my parents and myself and my sister Anne.
I didn't apply to go to universities in Scotland or Wales. It was back into England. I think growing up in Belfast, you kind of are told, and I was definitely told by my parents, that, you know, being political was dangerous and you should just keep your head down and not get involved with things. And so I think I definitely didn't get involved with Irish politics while I was there. I knew people at school who were involved a bit with kind of socialist politics, but the first thing I got involved with was CND.
I did it because it was there, really. It was the only language that they taught. Now I probably think I wouldn't mind being fluent in it, but I say up until fairly recently, I wasn't that worried about it. It wasn't a requirement for anything, you know. You didn't have to get a job anywhere. Like in the south of Ireland, you had to speak Irish to get a job in the civil service and so on. But up here, you're allowed. You speak Irish, they're allowed, and they'll give you the job. You know.
This year, I wrote about home, about my connection to Ireland and the threads that tie me to my mum and my granddad. I took a journey from home to home to home, retracing memories and looking for what remains. The stories we tell, the pictures we create, all contribute to the ongoing reimagining of Irish identity. Through photographs, recordings and movement itself, I've tried to understand what we inherit and how that inheritance shifts as it travels. What you'll hear in this film is part of that process, voices from across generations, overlapping and diverging. All history is inherently subjective, guided not only by the memory of the narrator, but by the process of telling itself. This is that process.
I think it changed when I got there, and I mean, people generally were quite awful to me. I mean, first of all, because I came from, quite a non-middle class family, working class family. I was the only one in the family to go to university, and so I didn't really know how to navigate it. And it was just all a big shock. I remember I was so shocked at the difference, which I suppose you are as a student anyway when you go somewhere new, but it just felt like a different place. Felt like an alien, and I was made to feel like an alien because people said they couldn't understand me. So I very quickly changed my accent. I didn't think, oh, I've got to have an English accent or I've got to stop having an Irish accent. I did it so that people could understand me, so they wouldn't make out, because not only do people pretend or not make an effort to understand you, but they make you feel stupid. A lot of people, when I say I'm from Belfast, the first thing they'll say is, "You don't have an accent," and in a quite accusatory way, I think. And I did feel guilty about that for a long time. I should just be at peace with that, really. But as you know, I tend to fall back into it when I go back to Belfast. I just kind of wish it came naturally now. If I move back home, then yeah. Because my mum, even though both her parents were English, I think my mum did really feel Irish and wanted to be Irish. She really felt very strongly about that. She's Irish, but yeah, I would have felt she was much more connected than my dad. Yeah. We had a great big tent, and my dad would pack it on the top of the car, and pack the four of us into the back seat of the car, and food for 2 weeks. They couldn't afford to eat out at all, so we brought all our food with us, mostly cans. My dad was a great swimmer, so we always went to the beach and always went into the water. My dad threw us into the water to learn how to swim. The weather was not always great in Ireland when we went on holiday. Sometimes it poured with rain and we got washed out. But I loved it. I loved going away with everyone, even though it wasn't particularly comfortable. And we saw all around.
The nature of my job, quite often I would come back from putting my orders in or something like that in the morning and pick them up and run them down, and I would drop them off at the beach if the weather was nice, which it was quite often.
So it's really weird to see. I've spread out the photographs of when I was little, going on family holidays and all my family, and posing for photographs like you do, and knowing what hides behind them. It's not always necessarily everybody getting on with each other.
That is us, I think, walking along the path at Bangor. And I don't know who that. I think that's probably Joanne and Mrs. Higgins. Mrs. Harding. I called her Mrs. H.
When we went, so we lived in Belfast. When we went over the border, we were all kind of excited about going to another country, and it was even more exciting at the times when, I was growing up in the 70s and the early 80s. It definitely was more exciting when there actually was a border, which there was. You had to stop, and everyone was, they looked inside the cars. They, talked to the when I say they, we're talking about mostly the British Army and sometimes the police. And then on the other side of the border, that would have been the Garda, the Irish police. Yeah, that was even more exciting. You just felt like you were going into a different world. And I found it really sad that you know, that we had this feeling that we were going somewhere really different. And of course it was different, but what I think now, I much more think, and when I visualise Ireland, I just think of it as one country. And, you know, nowadays you wouldn't notice when you go across the border, which is really nice, actually. So I suppose I think it's a bit sad that that it was something kind of exotic.
Travelled around Ireland, north to south. Started off in Donegal, just drove around, and spent a little time in Cork, around Cork. Just go there if you can. Some beautiful places. It was very pleasant at the time. It was a honeymoon, remember? You know. So again, that's I'm gazing at sheep, and Joan's taking the photograph. But I was in I rented. That was before I had a car. It was before I was a salesman, so I didn't have a car, and I rented a Ford. Can't remember the name, but it was the top of the range Ford. It was a 2-litre engine. It was great, and I had hardly driven a car before, and I was driving around Ireland a flipping 2-litre flying machine. Joan took the photographs. I don't know why. I don't know if she probably just volunteered. The one place I remember it so well I can't remember the name of it. It was a real old Irish town. And there was a market on when we arrived. And we drove in and parked, and we went into a pub for a drink, and it was full of farmers knocking it back like there's no tomorrow. Sitting there with a fistful of punch, and you having a drink there, are you? And all the rest of it. And their wives sitting out on the wagons outside, waiting for them. I thought it was the funniest thing I ever saw in my life. Checking the nature. It's a nature reserve as well. That there, I was saying to Leslie, that's my uncle, and that was the Irish water polo team, and he was a member of that, the national team. I think they played in the London Olympics. I think now, I'm not entirely sure, but that was, somebody told me that. And there's a water polo team again. That's the Clonard team off. Well, I'm about maybe 16 or 17, maybe 18 there. Well, that's Brenton Trainer, Ian McRae. What was him? Paddy McParland, that fella there. As you can see, very well built. And he threw a ball like a bullet, you know. And it used to annoy us actually, because when we played matches up in the waterworks off the Antrim Road, it was a pool sort of design, made for a school actually. I think they owned this building, changing rooms. They had a wee sort of built-in pool, and then they had an area roped off, and they played matches there. And he used to fire the ball over the bar, and somebody had to go flipping 100 yards to swim to pick it up, and through weeds and all to bring the ball back. Catch a falling star and put it in your pocket. Never let it fade away.